What's up guys, welcome back to a new video. Today we have Misasa from Team Kengan up against the Kengan Ashura Annihilation tournament. First I'll go over everything about Misasa, his power, his strength, his pass and everything like that. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Now let's go. My goal for 2020 was to reach 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So be a mad lad and subscribe alongside these other cool things. Now enjoy the video. So his real name is unknown and he's the affiliated fighter for Mutsuba and known as the 8th Fang of Mutsuba, absolute beast. He is the current holder of the title Fang, but he was also the former captain of the 5th squad of the bodyguards and the former second in command of the extermination force. His age in Kengan Omega is 29. His height is stated in Ashura to be 173 centimeters, but that could have very well changed and may not be 100% accurate, with his weight being 68 kilograms. After rising to the position as captain of the 5th squad of the bodyguards, Retsudo requested that Misa to join the extermination force, and we also learned that Misa was Katahara Retsudo's martial art teacher before all this occurred, and that during a conversation between Kano Gito and Retsudo where Kano was saying Retsudo should be the 8th Fang Retsudo assured to him that Misa was better at hand-to-hand combat than what he was, with Kano Gito being a little bit surprised by that and really implying that Retsudo is really capable of fighting himself, and that if Misa is stronger than him or better at fighting with hand-to-hand combat, he must be an absolute monster. And we got to see his monstrous fighting capabilities in the 4th round. We absolutely destroyed the ex-6th Fang of Mutsuba, Yumo Monkey Boy. One of the most one-sided fights we've had in the whole Kengan Ashura and Kengan Omega. Absolute domination. Misa absolutely destroyed him with really no damage whatsoever. He did get a few little cuts and maybe a little bit of damage from parrying and blocking some attacks, but as a whole didn't really take any damage and could have gone on much longer. Now I'll talk about some of his power and abilities. When it comes to his durability, he didn't really get to show much of this during his fight with Monkey Boy. Monkey Boy kinda very strong, one of the strongest physical wise characters we probably have in the whole verse. We didn't really get to see that in the fight because Misa is too fast and kinda blocked or parried or counterattacked pretty much all of Yumi's attacks. But there was a few times where attack kinda landed, it was somewhat blocked and Misa was able to tank those pretty well. Didn't really take an insane amount of damage, so he does have pretty decent durability and he's by no means a low-end fighter that can get one shot by like any random punch. One of his most impressive feats is his speed, and particularly his dodging speed, being able to avoid multiple attacks from Yumi at all parts in the fight, with the other extermination force members stating this during the fight or during the earlier parts of the fight. He's toying with him, he's waiting until the last minute to end this. So with that statement you can say that even during the early parts of the fight where Misa was still able to dodge, parry and block every attack from Yumi, he wasn't even going all out until right at the end we absolutely destroyed Yumi. This is where we get to see his physical strength, with him being able to easily destroy a, crack or destroy part of a boulder in his pass with, a little backhand slap thing, which was kind of implied that he's able to activate more of his inner potential due to how much training he's done, and that he's very aware of his own physical capabilities due to his size and weight, and that to get this insane power he needs to, do some other things to unleash it all. And then more strength feats for him shown to absolutely destroy Yumi at the end of the fight, destroying his neck, destroying his skull and absolutely just bodying him. And then with his speed, durability and strength put together, this is what makes him one of the best, if not the best, close range fighter we have in the whole series, with him stated to be a even better fighter at close range when he's fighting against opponents that are much larger than him, showing that he can actually take on very large fighters due to his skill, which I'll talk about now. So apart from being very knowledgeable about various vital points and where to attack and kinda attack timing as well, similar to Kuroki Gensai, where he pretty much attacks at the perfect moment when they're attacking to get that perfect counter attack, hit the vital and keep on going, not really giving out any, room of error throughout the fight. He has a martial art, and that is known as Silat, a martial art originating from Southeast Asia that centers around using the elbows paired with kinda soft movements, so a soft style fighter kinda, but it's not really that soft because his punches and elbows do insane amount of damage due to his special type of power based training he did in the past. And with this Silat, with his speed, with his durability, with his strength, he's able to pretty much counter attack almost any attack with his elbows alone. The elbow usage is why, he needs to be very close to excel in fighting and against bigger enemies, hit the vital points with an insane amount of damage and just keep the momentum going throughout the fight. An issue he may come about in the Kengan Ashura Annihilation tournament is how the ring is much bigger than what the special fight against Yumi was. As we know, the special fight involved a beam of light, which was representation of the ring, which would get smaller and smaller as the fight went on, and Misa only really excelled during the last final parts of the fight where it was very small, and Yumi didn't really have any way of using his superior reach to get an advantage over Misa, with Yumi's only chance of winning stated to be at the early parts of the fight, which he had failed to do so. So Misa may struggle with the insane size of the Kengan Annihilation tournament ring, but I don't think that will be too much of an issue. But as a whole, Misa is an absolute monster. I personally consider him top 5 strongest we've seen so far in the series. And now onto the various what if battles. First up, as always, we have Rito. Remember, this is Kengan Ashura feats for all the people fighting Misa. So Rito really has nothing on Misa. Misa will just walk straight through him, like 10 to 20% difficulty. Not really that hard for Misa to get that win. Up next is Kiryu Setuna. So you could argue these two characters are pretty relative when it comes to speed, and that Misa's dodging capabilities as shown with Yumi is pretty similar to Kiryu while using Blink, while in the, Fallen Demon and all that. And with Kiryu requiring very close range to land his attacks, I think Misa will walk through Kiryu and win probably around 65 to 70% difficulty. It'll be a lot harder fight than what Misa was against Yumi due to the Annihilation Tournament's ring and how powerful some of his techniques are. Up next we have Ray. So Ray Super Simp mode has a speed advantage, but it's not an insane amount, and you could argue Misa will be able to react to most things Ray's able to do, which will most likely result in Ray not really being able to do any, critical shots on Misa throughout the fight. He may get lucky early on and Misa may not be ready for like a super speed based attack right off the bat, but I think Misa is fully aware of his, surroundings and will be able to deal with Ray more easy than Kiryu. I would argue around 60% difficulty Misa will defeat Ray. Up next we have the 5th Fang Kano Gito up against the 8th Fang Misasa. So this fight will be one of the closest fights we'll ever see in the whole Kengan verse of all time. I believe Kano in the later rounds, after evolving multiple times against Gyaolang, multiple times or once against the other fighters, and then he with Hatsumi just bodying him, I think Kano may be too much of a monster to fall to any of Misa's attacks. As you know, Misa attacks the vitals, has insane power as demonstrated in the flashback and with him being able to deal with Yumi, but Kano, just think about how many attacks he tanked throughout Kengan Ashura, and compare that to what Misa was able to dish out on Yumi. Kano is this an absolute monster. It'll be a very high difficulty fight. I argue around the 90% range how hard it will be, but I do think Kano will end up winning this fight around 90 to 95% difficulty in my opinion. Up next we have Omar. I'm doing the later rounds Omar, so memories returned and all that. So in my personal opinion, I think this fight could go either way. It's 50-50 for Misa and Omar. You could argue that maybe some Nico style technique will hard counter Misa and maybe the Demon's Bane, but Misa doesn't really have this, ultimate powerful technique to really reflect back, like Wakasuki's Blast Claw that Omar used the Demon's Bane on and trying to use it on Kuroki as well. Misa, as we know, uses the soft style, the Silat, so you could argue Demon's Bane won't really have that much of an effect or won't really play a part in this fight to give Omar that quick easy dub. So in my opinion, I think this fight could go either way. Next we have Kuroki Gensai. Kuroki Gensai, an absolute monster, as we know, defeated all the people I just talked about. I think Kuroki Gensai most likely wins against Misa. Oh, of course he's gonna win, but I would argue around 80%. It may take a long time for Kuroki to actually put down Misa. We haven't really seen what a Misa is like after taking a good amount of damage or after, being cornered really. So with that, I do think Kuroki wins around 80% difficulty. Next we have Adam. Adam has nothing on Misa. Misa wins like 15% difficulty. Next we have Justice Boy Akora. So he has, fast reflexes, pretty tanky, being able to handle quite a bit of damage. Misa will probably, walk through him with his speed and technique and slowly whittle him down. But Akora does have his defense, but I don't think Akora will be able to sustain his defense long enough to hold Misa off. And Akora, he doesn't really fight the most tactical. Like, he won't realize Misa is an absolute god at close range combat and will probably enter, crazy rampage mode and have like a brawling session with Misa and end up losing around 55 to maybe 50 or 60% difficulty. Between 50 and 60% difficulty for Justice Boy. Up next we have Chiba. Misa wins 0.5% difficulty. Next is another interesting one that will have a big challenge for Misa, but I do think Misa gets the win on this. It is Galang. So Galang has that speed, has that boxing potential, has that calculations, has that foresight. It's not Omega Galang, so he doesn't have that, you know, insanely powerful God Glow, but he does have pretty decently powerful punches. It'll be interesting to see how these two pair up when it comes to speed and how they both use foresight and how that really compares to one another. However, I do think Misa wins around 85 to 90% difficulty. In Omega, it's definitely in the 90%, but in just Ashura Galang, I think it's more around 85% difficulty that Misa defeats Galang. Next is Hanafusa, Dr. Boy. Poison one-shots Misa KO. I'm joking. Hanafusa loses. Misa requires around maybe 20% difficulty. Next is Hatsumi-san. Both stated to use soft styles. Hatsumi-san, absolute speedy monster, especially when he's in, you know, prime condition. I'd probably say either way for this fight, similar to how Omar's fight with Misa could go either way, but I would maybe argue Hatsumi in absolute peak form may slightly be above Misa and may take that dub, so maybe 99%, but for now I'm going to leave it as either way. Next we have Cosmo. So Cosmo, when he doesn't have insane plot armor more than the protagonist, I don't think Cosmo has really anything on Misa. Misa is way too cautious while fighting and way too woke, one could say, to, you know, fall for a zone and get strangled out by Cosmo, and I just don't really think Cosmo has anything on Misa. Misa probably wins around 45 to, you know, maybe 50% difficulty rate, around that range. Next we have Julius Lanehold. So Julius and Ashura, very powerful, very tanky, not really the fastest when it comes to reaction speed. Like, he has a, you know, sprint, you know, statement and, you know, feat regarding that, but he doesn't really have insane reflexes to deal with, you know, Misa zipping around him, doing some, you know, quick attacks, getting out, keeping, you know, Julius away. But if Julius grabs Misa and, you know, starts doing some attacks on him, that's when, you know, Misa could very well get absolutely annihilated. But I think Misa has the wokeness to avoid that for the most part. But does Misa have enough power and, you know, strength to get through Julius's absolute tankiness? I personally don't really think he'll have enough time to do that, and I do think Julius wins around 95 to 99% difficulty. But while saying that, Misa could very well win this fight. I think this fight could be argued, it could go either way, but I personally do believe Julius will win super high difficulty. Next we have Canada, has absolutely nothing on Misa. Misa wins like 10% difficulty. Karo the fisherman in the same boat, has strength, but, you know, has that fish power, but really nothing, honestly. Kyozan may, you know, be a little bit more tanky than the previous two, maybe able to, you know, handle a couple blows. I don't think he's gonna, you know, even touch Misa. Misa way too cautious, way too powerful. Destroys Kyozan around 25% difficulty. Kano, as we know, you got those weak knees, boys. Okoro was able to work out. Misa, a lot more smarter than Justice Boy, will be able to take out Kano around 25% difficulty. Up next we have Kure Ryan. The way he's fighting during Ashura Annihilation tournament isn't very smart. This one fake brawl wants to, you know, beat someone down. It won't go that way against Misa. Misa way too fast, way too serious while fighting. It was absolutely body Ryan. You could argue that he's serious, you know, meter may not be as much based on the statement from the extermination force for Misa and everything regarding that, showing he was just toying with his opponent until right at the end. But honestly, I don't think Ryan can really do anything to Misa. Misa probably wins around 65 to 70% difficulty, just truly based on the way Ryan fights. Even with the removal and all the power he has, I don't think he can really do anything to Misa that could, you know, 100% guarantee his win from what we've seen so far. Next we have Gozo. Gozo may have, you know, the world's fastest flying V, but, you know, that's nothing. 10% difficulty, Misa wins. Next is Mutsuba, and an issue I have with Mutsuba is how his heart jab is kind of like a, you know, a weapon. And as we know in the Yumi fight, Misa excels at fighting people who use like a weapon-based fighting style. So a similar thing could happen to Mutsuba, but Mutsuba is, you know, a lot more tactical and a smarter fighter than what Yumi is, so it could very well be harder, but I do think Misa wins around 60% difficulty rate. Next we have Nezu. We all know what's going to happen to Nezu, you know, this look at this, that's what happens to Nezu in every other fight. Next is Nikado. A pretty decent special technique, but I don't think Misa will end up falling for that technique or even allow Nikado to unleash that technique on him. So yeah, Misa wins probably 10 to 20% difficulty. Next we have Okibo, an all-around fighter, but doesn't really excel at enough to deal with Misa. Like, you can be an all-around fighter like Kano, but Kano is an all-around fighter to the absolute limit for every everything, while Akibo is like average, maybe slightly above average with every, you know, element as an all-around fighter. So I think without, you know, excelling to the absolute limit like Kano, I don't think he can really do anything to Misa. So Akibo probably loses, and difficulty rate probably 50% for Misa. Same thing could be said for Sekibihashi. He fights like a suicidal fighter that wants to die while fighting. Misa will attack his vitals, eventually drop him down too fast to get caught by Seki. Seki loses. Misa about 50% difficulty rate, I'll say. Next is Wakasuki. It'll be similar to how Misa's fight with Julius would go, but Wakasuki could be argued even more tanky due to his, you know, super and crazy dense muscles, and it may take Misa even longer to get through, you know, some vital points due to all the muscle Wakasuki has, as we saw with Mutsuba trying to stab through Wakasuki's, you know, neck and everything that happened regarding that. Wakasuki an absolute tank. I do say he wins around 90% difficulty, but I could argue you could go either way for this fight as well, but I do think Wakasuki wins high difficulty. Next is Soulpang. So Soulpang has pretty decent speed, may be able to react to some attacks from Misa, but doesn't really fight the smartest. Has, you know, the tanky body parts from, you know, big powerful blows, but Misa doesn't really rely on that. He attacks vitals and will slowly wither Soulpang away and get that win, probably around 50% difficulty. Next is Hair Boy Inaba. Inaba has pretty decent power with that hair. I don't think Misa will be caught by that hair, to be honest, so yeah, Inaba can't really do anything against Misa. Misa wins again, 20% difficulty. Onto the final stretch, we have Meguro. Meguro, you know, gives him a hug and kills him. That is over. I'm joking, relax. Meguro can't really do anything. Way too stupid, way too crazy to deal with someone like Misa. Misa wins around 20% difficulty. Next is Mokinchi, whatever his name is, Robinson, the holy man. Probably won't do much to Misa. He was able to deal with a non-removal Ryan and force Ryan to enter the removal to, you know, shit stomp him, but honestly, Misa way too calculated, way too fast, way too, you know, powerful, way too much knowledge, way too serious. Robinson will get destroyed unless that ultimate technique Robinson wasn't able to unleash is, you know, the most powerful technique we'll ever see in the whole series. Last two. First up we have Sora, and we all know what happens with him, 0% difficulty, Misa wins. And then the last fight, which I'll leave with a big question mark, which is Bando. Could go either way. I want to say Misa wins 50% difficulty, but as we know, the whips could very well give Bando the win like against any other fighter. It really depends whether Misa's able to dodge the, you know, same way Hatsumi did against Bando's whips. We'll have to wait to see more of Misa's speed feats and get more fighting to see if he's truly capable of that, but I do say Misa wins around 50% difficulty. And that is the 8th Fang Mitsudo up against the Kengan Ashura Annihilation tournament. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, join the Discord and all that other good shit, and yep, that's it guys. Peace.